Hey everybody, Derek here. We're going to look at the news for the 5th to the 11th of July 2021. So probably biggest news, I guess, would have been the announcement of the new Nintendo Switch model, the OLED model. Though there's not a whole lot to talk about, really. So a lot of people were expecting this to be like the 4K version or like the HD, like extra super double cheeseburger version of the Nintendo Switch, but there's not a whole lot different in its specs. The OLED screen is the big change, as it used to be an LCD screen, or rather the base Switch model and the Switch Lite both use LCD screens, whereas the Switch OLED will use an OLED screen. Which is what most mobile phones use now. Oh, sorry, I'm going to say most, but not most. It's like a lot of Android phones use OLED screens. And the PS Vita, back in the day, used an OLED screen, and it was really nice. It was definitely a really nice feature of the device. That's kind of the biggest thing for the Switch, but that won't mean a whole lot if you play the thing mostly docked, which I do. So having a great screen looking at the inside of the dock is not who cares? There's an improved kickstand, so if you're not familiar, because you may not own a Switch, the kickstand on the OLED model is the full length, or the full width, if you like, of the Switch unit, whereas the kickstand on the base model is only like a tiny sliver off to the side, and it breaks very, very easily. So to be honest, that's actually much better. I would have liked to have had that. And another feature is there's some slightly better audio that comes out of it, but again, if you play it docked, that's not a big deal. The wired LAN port, yeah, sure, why not that too? But also wired LAN port in the dock is really nice. So the new dock that comes with it will also have a port for a LAN connection, which the Switch currently does not. Switch currently relies entirely on Wi-Fi. So having that is nice, and you can also buy the new dock, separately. So if all you really wanted was the wired LAN port, that is something to look into. And then a whopping 64 gigabytes of internal storage, which is fucking tiny. It's just laughable how small that is. Anyway, if you're really interested, it's out on October 8th, same day as Metroid Dread, so there's a bit of maybe there'll be a bundle or something for that would be nice. Otherwise, there's some smaller specifications. The screen is slightly bigger than the default Switch, owing to there being the bezel being a little bit narrower, so they've added an extra 0.8 of an inch to the screen size. Device resolution is unchanged, and its upscaling when you dock it is also unchanged. It'll only go up as high as 1080p, so it's not a 4K thing, and not a whole lot else to talk about. That's it. So it's not the big revolutionary Switch 2.0 that I think some people had been hoping for, like, 4K, huge battery life, that kind of thing. It's also not clear if they have fixed Joy-Con drift, that kind of thing. They are still undergoing a class action lawsuit about that, so we don't know if that has changed or whatever. The Joy-Con colors, they are still the regular Joy-Cons, so they will be interchangeable. I imagine you'll probably be able to buy them separately. I wonder if they will make a Switch Pro controller with those colors, because it's a nice color. I do like it. It'll match with my PS5 and the whole general setup I've got here. This is a lot of white. Anyway, not much to talk about, to be honest. It's a bit disappointing, but it's like a small iteration. It does ensure that people would potentially be more likely to buy this version if you were going to go for a new Switch. If you didn't own a Switch at the time, potentially you would go for this. It does harken back to the way Nintendo just kind of made small iterations on the DS, the 3DS, the DSi, and that kind of thing. Just small changes to just sort of fill into smaller niches. Just try to fill out the gaps. Switch Lite for people who never play docked. Switch OLED is for people who want like a slightly nicer screen. You would struggle to play the Switch handheld in sunlight right now from the LCD screen just gets washed out. The OLED screen, it's still gonna like detract from it. The lumen value of the sun is considerably higher than an OLED screen, but you'll do a little bit better, and the color quality is considerably better on an OLED. But if you're like me and the Switch basically never leaves the dock, although that's not true, I do take it out of the dock because I don't want it to warp, because that can happen. So I do take it out to charge or whatever. But if I actually want to play it, I play it docked. I don't play it handheld at all because I get a cramp in this finger and it's really painful and I don't like it. Anyway, moving on. So Sony had a state of play Thursday, where they showed off a bunch of third-party and some indie stuff. So we're going to take a look at a couple of them. So Moss Book 2, which you may or may not be familiar with. Moss was a really cool PSVR title where you controlled, or didn't really control, but you guided a tiny little mouse knight in a sweet kind of fairy tale world. We'll just skip ahead because a lot of this is... you can't do fucking shortcuts on an embedded video. Alright, that sucks. Alright, we'll have to jump to YouTube for the next video. But yeah, it's a really fun game. Moss itself is a really fun game, and will be interesting to just see a sequel to it. More of Quill, this mouse character even. It should be fun times. I am curious to see if this will potentially launch with PSVR 2 or PS5 VR or whatever. That would be interesting. Sorry, there was some small audio issue there. Anyway, we'll skip ahead. Arcade Again, which is, I think it actually launched this week. I'll be honest, I zoned out when the trailer came on. It's a colorful lewdy shooter kind of thing. Whatever. Oh, its early access begins on PS5. So it's out, but it's like a beta build or something. Tribes of Midgard was shown off, and actually they were showing off DLC. The game isn't even out yet, but they're showing off DLC for it. We'll do a quick look at it. It appeared in some other videos, some other state of play a while ago. It is a isometric Diablo-like thing, but with Vikings and that kind of thing, where you have a separate combat mode where you go off to fight horrible Norse-inspired monsters, and there's a kind of world building, village building kind of separate thing where you like build up your army or your NPC helpers, or you build up your village, build up your village siege stuff, fucking defenses. I couldn't think of the word. That kind of thing. This trailer was to show off the DLC or the next season patch that will be out after the game launches, like a month after or something like that. So they are positioning this as a kind of long tail game where there will be like additional seasons, additional patches, additional stuff added to it. So hope it does well for them, because they're putting a lot of effort in, but to be honest, I don't know. Like, I do like these kind of games, but there's something about it that I don't like, and I can't put my finger on it. But there's definitely something there that I'm not enjoying. Fist. It's like, I have to keep laughing at the name of this game, but it is again another game that was shown off in a previous state of play, I think, where you play a hare, bunny, rabbit guy with a very thick Russian accent who has a mech arm like strapped to his back that he can use to perform various things. It's a pretty cool side-scrolly combat thing. Like, there's a lot of fairly intricate combat in the trailer. You get shown off a little bit of it here. Also have this cat lady, whatever. Underwater section, not liking the look of that too much, but there is a bit where he actually jumps into a full-on mech. This is all CG, so we don't know how much of this is actually in the game. Do you actually get to control the mech at some point? That might be interesting. Anyway, yeah, I'll probably give Fist the old college try. Hunter's Arena Legends. Fuck you, Sony. Alright, well I guess we're not watching that video. Alright, hang on. I'll get it set up. Maybe I can just skip. Yes, I was born on the 1st of the 1st, 1960. I am old as fuck. Anyway, I don't even know why I bothered doing this because this game doesn't even look that good. Hunter's Arena Legends is it looks like a kind of For Honor thing. Hang on, we'll skip to actual gameplay. It's like, it's kind of like an open PvPvE area where you have a bunch of demon enemies, which you take on as a hunter type character, but then there are also players out in that world who are trying to hunt you down, and presumably you're also trying to hunt them down at the same time. And there's obviously cosmetics and shit to, you know, make you pay extra money and so on. Not my deal. If they had kept it as PvE, yeah, I'd have been all for it, but they had to put the other P in there, and now I don't care anymore. Sifu looks really cool. Really cool. Again, this was shown off at an earlier state of play. This trailer is one just kind of showcasing a little bit more of the combat stuff, but it's also been delayed to February of next year. So this trailer is just sort of highlighting that there is an aging mechanic, that every time you die, you can resurrect on the spot, but you will age by... It's not clear exactly how many years. It might have to do with how badly you got your ass kicked, or the difficulty of the enemy, or maybe there's a multiplier that if you had to do it again, so like quickly after being resurrected the first time, that maybe it adds an extra year on top of you or something like that. But or maybe they'll just go like Fibonacci numbers and it just gets exponential. But anyway, you do age over time. It apparently doesn't affect your combat ability, so it's not like I'm in my 70s, I can't do this shit anymore. It's like, no, you can still fight, it's fine. It doesn't affect you in that sense, which, I don't know. Like, in one sense, I get it. You don't really want to disadvantage the player that much. But I don't know, I kind of feel like there should have been a bit of a mechanic. Maybe you have less health when you're an old man, or something, I don't know. Maybe you have more acrobatics when you're a teenager or something like that. Also, it doesn't actually it doesn't actually say how old you are when the game starts. So do you start out as a baby and just get killed immediately? You have to age through it that way? I kind of doubt it. I don't think the game would even get rated if that was the case. There is apparently a limit on the age. Like you can't age out to like 200 and something. Like, they haven't said what it is, but there is a limit, and you will have to restart the game, basically. And also not clear if you carry over, if there are upgrades or whatever. I have a feeling there aren't. I have a feeling this is a kind of game where you play through it, probably age quite a bit your first time through, but the next time you don't age quite so much, and the next time, and eventually you get through it without, you know, dying at all, and that kind of thing. I don't know. That's what it strikes me as. It's that kind of game. Jet the Far Shore. I had heard a little bit about this, but I wasn't actually sure what kind of game it was. But now, after they've kind of shown off some actual in-game stuff, it seems like it's right up my street. It's a chill, explory thing in just very strange alien planets, and I am absolutely here for it. There is kind of on-foot sections, first-person sections where you interact with your crew. There's a big space mystery to solve and so on, but then there's also jetting about the place on your cool spaceship. And I'm definitely here for it. They have said that there is no combat situation. It's like you're very much there as an exploratory unit, you know, the kind of leave no trace kind of exploration stuff, like don't interact with the local wildlife if you can avoid it. You know, don't fuck up the area, don't make an outpost, that kind of thing. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this anyway. I don't remember if they gave a release date. I think they just said next year at some stage. don't know. They did have a small kind of developer interview. Okay, it's this year at some stage. They did have a small kind of developer interview side by side with that, so they went into a bit more stuff about that. Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba is Demon Slayer the game. If you know what the anime is, you probably know what the game is. We don't probably need to go into that too much. Lost Judgment is the sequel to Judgment, which I have only recently finished, maybe 2 or 3 months ago. This trailer is a bit gory, so we're kind of going to skip through it, but it's a kind of Yakuza type game. You know, action, combat taking place on the streets where you need to solve various murders. You are playing Yagami again as a freelance detective in Kamurocho, and I believe there's going to be a bit of Yokohama in the game as well. This is kind of highlighting some new features and some returning features. So there's a bit more parkour elements there. There's this whole mech and boxing and dancing mini games and stuff that were not part of the first Judgment. But then also that crime scene investigation stuff was. So it seems like it's just more of the same. Fucking dog. It seems like it's just more of it. So if you liked it the first time, chances are you like it again. It looks like Yagami has another combat style. He has a green combat style. So he had a red and blue combat style, tiger and crane. Don't know what green is. Anyway, and then a bunch of story stuff that won't make sense. Doesn't even make sense to me. So I don't. Oops. I didn't actually was trying to avoid showing the gory stuff, but there you go. And then second last thing, showed off a bit more of the Death Stranding director's cut. This was highlighted in Summer Games Fest with Jeff Keighley and Hideo Kojima. They're just kind of pointing out that there's going to be a Death Stranding director's cut, but it wasn't clear what exactly was going to be in it, because there wasn't any like additional DLC, there wasn't any like expansions or like free content and stuff on the original Death Stranding, and like you would think like a director's cut kind of definitive edition type deal would just package them all together and release it as one thing, but that's not what it's doing. Instead, it's actually adding a bunch of new stuff. There's a bunch of more story modes, there's a bunch of new creatures, new battles, new weapons, new traversal options, new carrier options. There's new combat options. There's a actual gun range at some points, so you can actually have an option to use the guns, because I think I practically played the whole game without actually firing my gun, unless it was a boss fight. I think that was about it. But yeah, there's like tons of new stuff, and new story stuff is actually the thing I'm probably most interested in, because it's weird. Death Stranding is a weird game. And I am definitely here for more of the weird stuff. Cargo Catapult sounds fun. Some more sports gun. The Buddy Bot looks pretty cool. The fact that he can carry you around the place. There's so much stuff in this that would have made the original game so much easier. An actual racing thing. That's pretty cool. I guess I wasn't paying attention to this trailer too much, because there's some stuff in here that I hadn't realized was in it. And yeah, new story stuff is it's the part I'm most interested in, to be honest. And then there were some things there that harkened back to Metal Gear Solid, which was like the Summer Game Fest thing, the teaser for it, which showed that off. And then the main focus of the state of play was just to give a demo of Deathloop. So they ran through a couple of scenarios, how you would approach those things, like kind of still edited gameplay, but not massively edited. Like it was like a proper gameplay demo. Come on, get to the part where it's not all heavily edited, please. No, they're still doing it. There's definitely a bit where they get to it where it's not super edited. You might have to watch it yourselves. I think it's here. So it's like it's trying to take down one of these main boss characters, and like showing off a couple of different features. You still have the blink mechanic that came from Dishonored. Like, I think almost every game Arcane has put out since then has some kind of short-range teleport thing, just because it's such a great feature, particularly for any kind of stealthy game. They have come out further to say that it is possible to get through the game without firing a single shot. You know, without killing anybody, or at least without killing anybody yourself. Like, they said the same thing about Dishonored, but like, actually, now that I think about it, there was a way to get through Dishonored without killing anybody, even the boss characters. But because the whole premise of this game is that you need to be able to break the loop, and the only way to do that is to kill 8 specific people all in one day, or all within one loop. Don't know how they'll do it. So they showed off there, which is a rewind mechanic. So it's something you can upgrade along the way, but if you die once, you can rewind back X number of seconds. Just in case, like, you just made one fuck up and you don't need to restart the loop entirely all over again. You can just, you get one chance to go back, or 2 or 3 or 4, you know, however much you upgrade it. And then there's also, you can see this sort of chromatic thing, this opalescence looking thing, that is your body. It's a body run mechanic. So, you know, if you get back to the point where your character died, you can pick up a bunch of resources, weapons, whatever. It does look like you can't carry too many weapons. It looks like you do need to swap them out. It's not clear how many, or how many gadgets you have, how many of them you have at the start. Do you need to go through a bunch of story segments? Do you need to go through a bunch of loops before you get these things? That's not clear. But there's clearly, like, it still clearly has the Dishonored sandbox element to it, where there's multiple different ways to go about things. Go the full stealth route, go the full combat route, do a mix and match. You know, knock people out, kill them off, whatever. They're going to come back in the next loop either, so, you know, you don't have to stick to one way of doing it. I can't believe you hit the second guy too, brilliant. They also highlight the other kind of main nemesis type character who kind of randomly shows up and is considerably more powerful than any other character and will probably kill you if they catch you, kind of thing. It may or may not, it sort of sounds like there is an NPC character on the radio with you, and I have a feeling they're the same person. I'm kind of guessing here that there's a time travel-y type thing happening here. Well, there's a time travel-y thing anyway, because, you know, you're looping back on yourself, but I think there's a bit more to it than that. Anyway, there's a big full, like, 10-minute, 15-minute video of Deathloop stuff, so if you're interested in it, check it out. It is, even though Microsoft bought Arcane recently, acquired the studio, Deathloop is still locked into its timed exclusivity deal with PlayStation, so it'll be exclusive to PlayStation up until September of next year. So lengthy enough, but I mean, it will lose its exclusivity eventually. So if you can hold off, there's still a shit ton of games to play. I'm sure you could probably hold off if you happen to own an Xbox or want to play it on PC or whatever. You could probably do that. Anyway, that was the State of Play presentation from Sony on this week. Another presentation. Now, I know this is super weeby stuff, and it's probably only me who's actually interested in Genshin Impact, but there was a nice presentation about 2.0, which is showing off a new area called Inazuma, which is heavily Japan inspired, which again is just going to further the weebiness. They gave like a nice overview of all the different areas, a bit of stuff about the storyline, some new characters, some new waifus. It looks really pretty. Their last kind of big area, Liwa, was heavily China inspired, and that's where the company is even based. The developers are all from there. That was a really cool area, so I'm kind of hoping the Japanese version, because I am a huge weeb, and I do definitely have a fondness for Japan. Showing off a couple of the new enemy types, so we've got some samurai and some ninja and so on. There's a trailer here somewhere. There it is. I was wondering where it is. So there's a trailer for it. It's a fairly lengthy trailer because it basically shows off all of that stuff too. the lightning god that rules over Inazuma. The Lightning Archon is a pretty cool character. The whole thing of Inazuma is mostly lightning based, so if you played Genshin Impact, it's kind of split up into all these different elements with gods based off those elements, and the kind of main through line of the game is that you are traveling from each different landmass. So we've already seen the wind one, and we've met the earth one, and this will be the lightning one, or the electro one. Some different new characters have been showing up, so the gacha lottery system is something we'll have to look at to trying to acquire all these characters, and then spending way too much time trying to beef them up and actually make them usable. But that's kind of the whole deal with Genshin Impact. The trailer is actually pretty cool. That's the lightning god there. She's pretty cool. Anyway, yeah, so that was Genshin Impact. Again, if you're interested in it, this PlayStation blog goes into a whole article about it. There's that trailer, and MiHoYo have a full hour-long stream about it, so check that out. Madison is a horror game that was just announced this week, so it's only on PC at the moment, Steam wishlist. It is pretty heavily PT inspired. Like the first, how even long is this trailer? I was gonna say first minute or so of this trailer is like, you could nearly put PT side by side with it, but then it does go into like some other areas. It's like really high fidelity imagery. It's probably photogrammetry, that kind of thing, but then tons of jump scares, some really eerie imagery, a possible Polaroid mechanic and stuff like that. Something to look at anyway. Horror-y type games. PT has a lot to answer for, with a lot of recent like first-person type horror games like being heavily inspired by it, and just further reinforcing that Konami absolutely dropped the fucking ball on that. And then out of kind of nowhere, this just Robocop Rogue City trailer was dropped. There's no gameplay, it's entirely CG, it's entirely a mood setting piece. This is just an overview of a radio presenter basically just highlighting problems in Detroit and who's going to fix them. Somebody has to do something. OCP are stepping up to the plate to kind of help out, and who are they going to bring on? Robocop, obviously. So there's nothing in the trailer really. It's just a mood setting piece with a very quick teaser of Robocop himself, and it's not going to be out for a really long time. But it's by the same people who made the latest Terminator game, Terminator Resistance, I think, which was kind of I think people were expecting it to be pretty crap, but it turned out pretty good. So there's kind of hope for Robocop Rogue City. But again, 2023. It's a good chance they're barely started on the game, so we'll see how that goes. Okay, new releases this week. The game I've been talking about a lot, Monster Hunter Stories 2 Wings of Ruin, which is a kind of Pokemon take on Monster Hunter, where you can acquire monsties, or monsters, they're called monsties in Monster Hunter Stories, and use them to take part in combat. There's a kind of heavy story focus, which Monster Hunter doesn't typically have. Like, the story is usually pushed to the back for Monster Hunter, where they focus mostly on the hunting of monsters, as you might imagine in the name of the game. It's been getting some pretty good reviews. The original Monster Hunter Stories is also a bit of a cult favorite. Rathalos would just get annihilated in that fight. Anyway, it looks really interesting. I've seen some gameplay, some people have played the demo. I've seen a couple of people doing some quick LPs on the game itself. It only came out this week, and it's gonna be a good long time before I get to it, but luckily, as this trailer points out, because it's only halfway done, this trailer points out multiple title updates, and Capcom are always kind of like farming out DLC and extra costumes and shit like that, but they've been pretty good for Monster Hunter, where they just bring in new monsters, new story stuff, new mechanics, new equipment, like all the time. They always have something new coming. I could go back to Monster Hunter Rise now and just have a shit ton of new stuff to look into. There's tons, and this trailer goes in to point out five future updates, and probably more on the way afterwards, I would think. Boomerang X, which is coming to Switch and PC, and also Monster Hunter Stories 2 is also going to be on Switch and PC. Boomerang X is a kind of... I don't know how you describe it exactly. It's a Devolver Digital joint where it's first person boomerang combat, I guess. You have this kind of Krull thing, this kind of glaive looking thing, where you can slow down time, target specific enemies. It does look like they're one-hit kills, but it also looks like it's going to be almost impossible to play with a controller. So you might want to get it on PC. And it possibly has some kind of not corpse running thing, but like a pseudo hardcore mode, like Dark Souls and Diablo and that kind of thing. It's probably not for me. Like, I do appreciate the kind of twitchiness. The combat is kind of interesting, but this to me feels like it's going to be next to impossible to play with a controller. So I'll probably have to give it a miss, but it does look really interesting, and LPs of it will be interesting to watch at least. The Silver Case 2425 is it's a bundling of two different games, the Silver Case and the Silver Case 25th Ward, which are two pretty old visual novels from Suda51, he of Deadly Premonition and Killer is Dead and Lollipop Chainsaw and a couple of other things. So you know it's going to be pretty weird. It's going to be a pretty weird storyline. Some puzzle solving elements. Like, it's kind of a somewhat detective-y type thing. I haven't played them myself, and to be honest, I always thought the Silver Case and the Silver Case 25th Ward were the same game. Like, I always thought 25th Ward was a remaster, but it seems like maybe not. Maybe they were actually different games. Silver Case has been sitting on my console for a good while. I have just never gotten around to play it, and I think I have 25th Ward as well, so probably won't buy this particular package, but I'll probably look into playing it at some point. But anyway, there's some more Suda51 shenanigans. He always makes weird shit, and if you're into visual novels, and particularly visual novels that err on the more mature, I guess, side of things, it's probably something to look into. And then last, but not least, is A Plague Tale Innocence. So this isn't a new release exactly. Plague Tale Innocence is just getting a next gen, current gen, whatever way you want to put it, update. So it's like 4K, better performance, better frame rate, that kind of thing. There's no like additional gameplay stuff or whatever. It's still the same game. It's just higher fidelity, I guess. So I'm kind of only highlighting this. One, it is, I believe, free for PS5 players at the moment if you have PS Plus, and I think it's going to be on Game Pass as well for Xbox players. And I'm also highlighting it because I'm planning to do an LP of A Plague Tale Innocence. So I'm going to be starting it this week. So the first video, part 1, should be out this week at some stage with more videos to follow. You should, hopefully, if I did the thumbnails right, it's on one of these sides. I forget if this camera is mirrored or not. So yeah, I'll be hoping to start that. Plague Tale Innocence is a really, really fun game. And it's a really grim game as well. And I really appreciated it really makes you feel powerless and then kind of powerful at the same time. It's kind of an odd way to put it, because pretty much every enemy in the game is going to kill you almost immediately, but at the same time you're more than capable of taking them out. You just have to not confront them directly ever, kind of thing. Anyway, if you happen to hang around, and I hope you do, to watch the LP, hopefully you'll get what I'm talking about. I am also planning on doing videos to be with and without commentary, so if you want to watch the game without my stupid jokes, which I wouldn't blame you exactly, you'll have that option as well. So the best part of the week, where we get irrationally angry at the industry that produces the thing that we really like, and we just wish they weren't so shit about it. We'll start with Ubisoft, because there's a lot of shit happened with Ubisoft this week. So Ubisoft is working on Assassin's Creed Infinity, a huge evolving online game. So this was kind of dropped by Jason Schreier of Bloomberg, formerly of Kotaku. It came out with news that Ubisoft are planning to make this kind of massive live service Assassin's Creed thing, where you'll have multiple not timelines, multiple points of history that you can play through. So I guess they'll pull from the ones they have already. So they've got where does Assassin's Creed 1 take place? Jerusalem? Yes, I think. Jesus. Jerusalem for Assassin's Creed 1. Assassin's Creed 2 would have been like Rome, Venice, Florence, that kind of thing. Bit of Turkey, actually, with Assassin's Creed 2, 3. Assassin's Creed 3 would have been like colonial America. Assassin's Creed 4 would have been Golden Age of Pirates in the Caribbean. Assassin's Creed Unity was the French Revolution. Assassin's Creed Syndicate was Victorian London, I think. I think it was Victorian London. I don't think it was Georgian London. What was Assassin's Creed 6? Origins, so Egypt. Assassin's Creed Odyssey would have been, or ancient Egypt rather. Assassin's Creed Odyssey would have been ancient Greece. And then Assassin's Creed Valhalla would have been Viking era England and a bit of Ireland as well. I kind of find it funny and I kind of find it a bit sad that they have the guy from Assassin's Creed Syndicate in this lineup, because he really shouldn't be there. It's the sister should be there, because she was the actual assassin, whereas he was more of a brutish kind of character. Plus she had the whole hood and cowl thing going. Why is he there? Really? Anyway, if potentially they'll pull in the side stuff as well, so you'll have like Assassin's Creed Liberation, which was also colonial America, but in the south. And then you had those side-scrolling games. There's one that was set in China. I don't know what period of Chinese history, because I never played it. And there was one set in Russia, as also don't know when. I can guess. There's probably the Boxers' Rebellion for China, and I don't know. I don't know enough about Russian history to pick there. Anyway, that's that. It's years away, and it's going to see a collaboration with the two Ubisoft companies, Ubisoft Montreal and Ubisoft Quebec, who are basically responsible for the big Assassin's Creed games lately, which is kind of a departure for them, because previously Assassin's Creed games were churned out by both companies. Actually, even more studios, where there were like hundreds of people working on them, and they would have made Assassin's Creed 1, Assassin's Creed 2 trilogy, Assassin's Creed 3, 4, 5, and so on. And it was clear that the quality was dropping in between it, because they were so focused on churning out new ones. And the whole reason that they decided to trade the game between studios was to get away from that dropping quality, so that they would have the time to actually build the game up, which is where Origins started. So it was Assassin's Creed Origins was a change, because they took a bit of a break between Syndicate and Origins to make that, and the gameplay itself is actually a pretty big change also, because it plays a lot more like Skyrim now, really. And then a different studio, Quebec, would have taken on Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which would have given Montreal time to work on Valhalla. So and then they released that. So they're going back on themselves to make this big collaborative thing again. I'm not sure it's a good idea to do it. Also, turning it into a live service, while it kind of makes sense, if you haven't played the Assassin's Creed for a while, the in-universe thing is that there's now a product where people can, like, VR headset and sit themselves in it, and they can experience different timelines, like the Abstergo in-world company have that product thing, so it kind of makes sense that the Assassin's Creed Infinity thing would sort of ape that idea that you can just jump between different timelines or different historical periods and whatever. How the story would play out, I don't know, but making it live service is just so many live services are already out there, and they're really late to the party on it because people are getting fatigued with them as well. So I don't know if that'll be a good idea. But later on, kind of buried in the article, although Jason Schreier himself, to be fair, did make a point out, is the whole Ubisoft toxicity thing that I've certainly tried to highlight, at least in these videos. A lot of the team leads now were men accused of sexual assault and sexual abuse. Maybe not assault, sexual abuse and sexual harassment. I don't know if there's a legal difference. I'm not going to wade into that. But anyway, these teams are going to be collaborating together now. So there's people on, like, we'll say the Montreal side who know about the managers in charge of the Quebec side, and now they're going to be forced to work with them. And they're like, I don't want to. Like, I know what they've been accused of, and I also know that the company has done fucking nothing about it, right? It's kind of pointed out. Marc-Alexis Cote, don't know if that's how you pronounce his name, and he's been confirmed that he will be leading the cross-studio collaborative thing. Cote was accused of being aware of toxic behavior at Ubisoft Quebec and knowingly enabled that toxicity. Cote personally treated them well, but was aware of abuse being dealt out by senior colleagues and allegedly took no action. So people don't want to work with him, basically, is the issue here. They don't feel that the company has actually done anything. Ubisoft spokesperson, they got back to Jason Schreier basically to say any employee that had allegations and remained at Ubisoft has had their case rigorously reviewed, sure it has, by a third party. A third party we paid them to get a particular results, but anyway, and we're either exonerated, you can't, unless the third party was literally the police, I don't think you can be exonerated exactly. Anyway, or underwent appropriate disciplinary actions. Appropriate disciplinary actions for a senior member of staff. There you go. Employees have been under investigation, would not remain at Ubisoft if results of investigations warranted termination. Now, to be fair, people have left Ubisoft in the intervening year, the 2020-2021 period of this, when this came to light. Obviously, it had been happening well before that, but it came to light then. There have been departures from Ubisoft, some of them pretty high level, some of them low level, some of them whatever. It was never clear that they were being terminated because of this, or if they were leaving just because there was news of it and they're like, really? I've been working with these people? Get the fuck out of here, etc. You know, or they're on to me, I need to leave, or I was given a nice severance package and I can leave, etc. It was never made clear, so we don't know, which is also a problem because it's not accountability. They can go on to another company and continue to behave like that if they really did behave that way. Despite this being this thing where we've definitely dealt with it now and it's all over, there are reports that some managers accused of abusive behavior remain in senior positions, which is clear from Alexis Cote, and there is another one. There's another guy who's still in charge, but it's not in this article. It's in another article I read, but I forget his name. It begins with a J, but it's not this guy. It's not Julien Laferriere. But anyway, Ubisoft's internal message board receiving numerous complaints by staff unhappy at the company's response to the allegations. So basically, Jason Schreier drops this story about Assassin's Creed Infinity being this big collaborative effort between all the Assassin's Creed studios that are with Ubisoft at the moment. A lot of people, the first time they're hearing about it. Ubisoft eventually come back the day later or so to confirm that yes, they are working on that kind of thing and how great it's going to be. You know, keep buying our products, please. And then it's a lot of developers or management staff or lower level basically going, the fuck, I don't want to work with this guy. He's a shithead. Not a good look for them. A new report reveals many Ubisoft employees unhappy with how leadership handled Me Too. So this is a somewhat more in-depth article, just kind of looking into the stuff itself. This kind of shift to a more collaborative thing. The shift reportedly has many employees feeling frustrated and nervous about the future, especially given that new teams are being led by managers that had a birth of accusations against them, yet remain in their situated roles. The recent moves have kicked up the need for employees to speak up once more, causing the internal message board for said devs to air their concerns to become flooded with disappointment over how allegations were handled. Solidaires Informatique, which you may remember from Quantic Dream, also shenanigans, and also Ubisoft stuff, reported that 3 Ubisoft managers were accused of harassment or toxic behavior, as well as reports of overt racism and sexism, with a HR department that has reportedly not done anything of value. This is Ubisoft kind of responding to Game Informer this time, and it's much the same thing. Like we've taken actions, we've slapped wrists, we've flicked ears, we've grabbed asses. I don't know. We've done everything except actually fire people, and go and like they point to the recent thing that Yves Guillemot came out to say that we've mea culpa except not mea culpa. But anyway. It was also revealed that growing unrest had caused a rising number of employees in the Montreal studio to leave. Now they've cited a couple of different things. One is the whole ongoing toxicity thing with Ubisoft. The other is, I'm tired of working on massive productions. It's like Assassin's Creed is only getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. It's like, rein that shit in. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of doing crunch and overtime and having to deal with shitheads in the company. Assassin's Creed Infinity's ambitions proved more than they were willing to continue doing. People leave the company for as Liana Rupert kind of points out here. People leave companies all the time, and they leave them for a variety of different reasons. Some of them going to be that you just doesn't fit with like whatever the company's current direction is. They've pivoted to some kind of game you're just not interested in making. You never wanted to work on a live service kind of thing, and now they're going all in on live service, and you're like, okay, I want to leave. Or you never wanted to work with a sexual abuser. I don't want to work with them, so goodbye. More Ubisoft. That was like has recently unearthed their universal registration document, which is a document you kind of basically have to put out. If you're a publicly trading company, you need to put out this thing, and it kind of highlights company policies, changes over the years, risks on your investment, potential returns on your investments, that kind of thing. It's basically to give investors an idea of whether or not Ubisoft are a good company to invest with. And this time they were pointing out risks. Ubisoft identified moderate risks of inappropriate behavior by employees. Moderate. But then pointed to a high risk of losing or failing to retain talent. It doesn't quite go all the way to point out that these two are probably related, but anyway. Some kind of risk factors they laid out, saying that the accusations of harassment and toxic culture have resulted in losses of key talents, damaged the company's reputation and image. Certainly done that, although I was going to say that they probably didn't have much of a reputation before that, and that's probably more of a minority opinion, but I think they've kind of lost a lot of their sheen because of this kind of thing, which may also impact its appeal and retention of talent. So people don't want to work there because it has a bad reputation, basically. 2020, the movement to denounce behavior that is toxic and sexist within Ubisoft's team led to the unexpected departure of several key talents. Unexpected! We weren't expecting these toxic people to have to be forcibly removed from the company. Some positions could not be filled immediately, so it resulted in delays and so on. They have a zero tolerance policy. Zero tolerance. You did a bad thing. Think about what you did for an hour and then get back to work. The group cannot provide an absolute guarantee that this type of risk will be controlled, so they're not gonna try, more or less. So take it or leave it. Further toxic behavior at the company could lead to loss of talent. People don't want to work there anymore. An obstacle to its attractiveness and to retention of talent. Again, people don't want to work there anymore, and people also don't want to work there because it has a bad reputation. Loss of efficiency. Company morale is in the shit. Developers aren't being listened to, so they're not going to be doing their best work. Damage to the reputation and the image of the group. That could lead to a decrease in activity in our games. So players get wind of the whole bad toxic behavior in the company and just don't want to buy, purchase, or play those Ubisoft titles anymore. The risk section related to toxic behavior has been added to the 2021 version, so it wasn't even there before that. Like, it was clearly an ongoing thing, but they felt that they didn't need to highlight it because it hadn't come out into the public that it was behaving that way. But once it hit the public, they couldn't ignore it anymore. And it's kind of telling that they talk to their investors about this stuff and are somewhat open about it, but when it talks to like the general public, they could not be any more tight-lipped. Here it is. This is the article, which is like Jonathan Dumont takes a creative data role at Ubisoft Quebec, so he'll be involved with the Assassin's Creed Infinity thing. Dumont was among the numerous men in positions in leadership that were accused of being abusive. So that was the guy whose name started with a J. It's not the first time in the past year that Ubisoft is criticized for keeping controversial figures in its management teams, with former Ubisoft Singapore director Hugues Ricoeur and Florent Castelnera, probably, head of Ubisoft owned Anadio, and both still part of the company, and also Yves Guillemot's nephew or whatever. Although I think he stepped down, or he's announced that he's going to step down. Anyway, Assassin's Creed Infinity gonna be a big live service type thing, or at least they're planning on it. But also, Ubisoft still has done nothing to address its sexual abusers and toxic work culture. Business as usual, basically, at Ubisoft. But we're not done. Oh no, we're not done with Ubisoft. Yeah, you thought we were done with Ubisoft. So, Ubisoft pulls Might and Magic 10 Legacy from sale after DRM server shutdown backlash. Okay, so the original story is that Ubisoft took down Might and Magic 10 Legacy. Or rather, sorry, we'll go back. Ubisoft shut down a bunch of its servers for a bunch of its old games, which had the knock-on effect that the DRM couldn't be validated anymore because the server was gone. So you couldn't play the game anymore. The game that you owned, that you had installed, that you had paid money for, you can no longer play it because Ubisoft decided not to support it anymore. That was the big stink. People were... Ubisoft decided to end online support, shut down the DRM servers, and as a consequence, people were unable to access significant portions of its single-player content and its DLC. When they say significant portions, you might as well say everything except the main menu. Because you couldn't boot the game up because DRM couldn't be validated. Another reason why some games just don't need to be online. It's just not necessary. And it's also an example of how the paying player, the person who gave you the money, i.e. not the pirate, is more disadvantaged than somebody who pirated the game. This is why DRM is bad. It's just not necessary. You are punishing your actual customers to get at people who this will not affect. It will get pirated no matter what. It's going to happen. It's a PC title. There are ways around these things. This is just disrespectful to your paying customers. But even with this problem, the game and its DLC were still on sale. So to address this issue, Ubisoft go, oh, oops, we'll make them not for sale, so. Okay. Maybe turn the server back on? No? Anyway, they took them out at sale, so it's delisted. If you still own the game, you can still download it, but you still can't fucking play it, because they didn't fix that part. So basically, they made it so that potential customers won't be disadvantaged, but they're already paid customers still fucked over. And like obviously this resulted in huge Steam review bombing, super very negative up to this point. And then Eurogamer asked for a comment about the delisting, and that's where the update was. So updated. Ubisoft is currently investigating all available options. I'm sure they are. On 1st June, we shut down various services for several legacy games on PC, including for Might and Magic 10 Legacy, as they could no longer meet our security standards. So make them meet your security standards. No? Update them so that then they meet your security standards, not turn it off. During that process, we unfortunately encountered an unexpected issue with this title. Unexpected. We turned off the validation thing. We're well aware we turned it off. So it couldn't be validated anymore, but somehow it was unexpected that it couldn't be validated anymore. Preventing new and returning players from accessing the game and its DLCs. That shouldn't be DLCs. It should just be... It's not downloadable contents, right? It's downloadable content. The plural of downloadable content is downloadable content. Anyway, yeah. Let's not get into semantics about it. We are currently investigating all available options and will keep players informed as we can share more. In the meantime, we made the decision to remove Might and Magic 10 Legacy from sale until further notice. Owners of the game are still unable to play the game. Ubisoft's statement offers no guarantee it will actually fix the issue. So, the game you own, you don't actually own it. Just a reminder. That's the world we live in now. Okay, we'll move away from Ubisoft for a minute to talk about EA and Codemasters, even better. So EA bought Codemasters a while ago, a month ago or so, maybe 2 months ago, and now the leaders of Codemasters are leaving. So Codemasters CEO Frank Sagnier and CFO Rashid Varashia have left the developer following its acquisition by EA. EA told Game Industry Biz that the pair's departure has always been part of the plan. They say this every time. It's always part of the plan that we cut off the leadership. We cut the head of the snake off and then devour the rest of the body. Basically, they're gonna take away any person who would have power or potential influence on how the new acquisition would be treated, right? So the CEO, CFO would have had the majority power in Codemasters in that company, and they could have, treated with EA on how the company gets developed, what happens to the IP, and so on. They're gone now, so there's nobody left with that kind of that level of power and that level of knowledge of the company. They're gone now. No one's going to be promoted to take over that position because EA own Codemasters now, so they're not going to put anybody up to that height. So all they'll do is replace it with their own people, and then their own people can do whatever the fuck they want with Codemasters. Right? This is EA. EA buys company and kills it. 101. This is how they do it. This is how they did it with every company. Same with BioWare. Once they bought BioWare, the leadership left, bought out, or contract terminated, or whatever way you want to put it. But they forced them out. Same thing happened with Maxis. Will Wright left. I believe the same thing happened with Bullfrog. I think Molyneux left them. I think he came back after a while though as well, so it's debatable. But this is what they do, and I think this is the typical hostile takeover playbook as well, which is offer an obscene amount of money, get them to agree to it, kill off the leadership, and then devour the rest of the body, leave a smoking husk behind, and move on to the next. There's some actually excellent, now I don't normally dive into the comments on these things, but there are some excellent satire and this would be funny if it wasn't true comments underneath this. It's actually pretty good. Okay. Last thing for industry bullshit. EA denies reports it's planning to include TV-style adverts in its games. So this is kind of a result of a report from Axios, who kind of highlighted that EA and Tencent have made a deal with a company called Simul Media, who have just developed a platform for in-game advertising called Player One. And that is an awful, awful name. And basically the premise of Player One is to more or less ape the idea on mobile games where if you watch an ad, you'll get another spin of the wheel or whatever, you'll get some kind of unlock. But to pull that into console games as well. So reward players for watching advertisements. Compatible games can use Simul Media Server to tell if the ad has actually been played in its entirety and then reward the player with whatever. Give you an extra 100 fun bucks or a palette swap skin or something, whatever. Basically, EA came out to say that no, we're definitely not thinking of doing this, you guys. We're EA. We'd never do that. EA are like creating the best possible player experience remains our priority focus, right? Right? EA games, famously great for best possible player experiences. All right, why is this bullshit? Okay, why is this bullshit? Because they've done it already. This is why it's bullshit. Last year, the company apologized for briefly adding advert placements during the UFC 4 game matches. So you may remember this news story. Basically, they popped in a bunch of ads for Amazon's The Boys, were showing up in between fights in the UFC game. Advertisements reportedly started appearing as UI overlays during game replays in September 2020, causing fans to vent their frustration in Reddit or whatever. Obviously, the big issue that people had was that UFC 4 was a full price release and not a free-to-play title. And then the ads themselves were added weeks after the game's release, so it wasn't publicized that there were literal ads in my $60 game. EA later acknowledged the community's reaction and published a statement claiming that the feature had been removed and would not reappear in the future. Like, they don't accidentally put ads, a whole overlay thing of ads. Like, how it doesn't accidentally make its way into the source code. It doesn't accidentally make its way into a patch. It doesn't accidentally get certified by Sony and Xbox or whoever to say that this patch is okay, because you gotta pay for them. You gotta pay for console patches. You don't have to pay for PC patches, as far as I know. Or if you do, it's much less. They didn't accidentally do this, basically. They knew what they were doing. The only reason they didn't keep doing it is because they got so much shit for it. But then they went into partnership with this company this is literally their deal. This is what they do. Their thing is ads in games. And they've just made this thing, then went into a deal with EA and Tencent. Get ready for ads, basically, in your EA games, is what I'm saying. It's gonna happen. And probably Fortnite as well, with Tencent. Alright, palate cleanse. Palate cleanse with a nice shot of Miranda's ass. Okay, so, some dumb stuff. Mass Effect Legendary Edition mod restores original trilogy Miranda butt scenes. So, it's a bit of a story for this. Mass Effect 2 is pretty old at this point. Original Mass Effect 2 had a number of questionable camera angles during interactions with some characters. Now the Miranda one is the most blatant one, right? It's like obvious arse in shot, and like it's there for a solid amount of time, because this is a moment where you have to make a decision. So that could be there forever, basically. If you never make a decision, you're going to be seeing Miranda's ass forever. The Legendary Edition took out these camera angles. And for a lot of other characters, there's a couple of other characters that have similar things, and it's not just the women. So the male characters have this kind of thing of close-ups on their ass and on their crotch and lots of other stuff. It's like, why are these in the game? It's weird. It's obvious why they're in the game. Obviously, somebody was very horny, but anyway, they were removed in the Legendary Edition. And the camera angle was changed so that they're not, so gratuitous and so on. But some modder was evidently quite horny and decided, you know what, let's put them back in. So they're back. If you happen to play it on PC, you can get a mod that puts that camera angle back in. But also, there's a bit of an Easter egg that if you watch it for long enough, something might happen. Anyway, it's just life finds a way, as the famous mathematician once said. Okay, hilarious shit on Fallout 76 thing. So this is an emote that made its way into Fallout 76 somehow, apparently by accident, as Bethesda claims. It was an unfinished emote and it should not have actually made it into the game in the first place, and they were planning on releasing it. So what is the emote? This guy takes out a Roman candle, lights it, and then nothing happens. There's actually no fire on his lighter either, now that I think about it. So he didn't light it at all. Anyway, that was in the game for like a month. Something you could buy in the in-game store with your Fallout fun bucks, with their conveniently legally distinct from dollars fun bucks. So anyway, it's not clear they refunded anybody who actually bought it or whatever. There was some hope that it just didn't work and it was going to work on July 4th for like American Independence Day or whatever, and that's when they push a patch to make it actually light up or whatever. Didn't happen, and it's actually been removed now anyway. But yeah, Fallout 76 continues to be a trash fire that people seem to have found endearing at this point, that it's not, at least it's stable enough that you can just laugh at the bugs and not just get really pissed off that you spent money on it, I guess. Anyway. And then PlayStation pulls advert with upside down PS5. So there was an ad out where this father and son were doing like a bedtime story, and the father was making up a story about God of War, more or less, and regaling it to his son. And then his son goes to sleep and he goes back down to play God of War, except his PS5 is upside down. It's just like, oops. I'm sure Sony were fucking thrilled with that, but anyway, they pulled the ad. It's not up anymore, but I just thought it's funny. But it does kind of highlight, like, it's kind of hard to tell which way is the right way up for a PS5, unless you're doing, like, obviously if you're playing the thing vertical, it's fine. Actually, now that I think about it, if you're playing it vertical and you do have a disc drive, you're also going to have trouble to know which way is the right way up for the Blu-ray. There are symbols on the console to kind of help you out, to tell you which way is up, but they're pretty subtle. They're a little hard to see. But it kind of just highlights the stupidity. Anyway, if you didn't know, the disc tray is meant to be on the bottom of the PS5. So now you know. Unless, like me, you bought the digital only edition and you don't have a disc drive. And I can go into why I bought a digital only edition, but it's fine. We won't go there. Let's just say the PS4 had a faulty disc drive and I don't want to talk about it anymore. Anyway, that was the news for 5th of July to the 11th of July 2021. Let me know what you thought. Nintendo Switch OLED, bit disappointing. Was kind of hoping for like a 4K thing, because 4K and like much better chip set, because there are some games that really, really struggle to run on the Switch. And that's unfortunate. And it is noticeable, very much noticeable. What else? Sony State of Play. The State of Plays recently have been genuinely disappointing. Most of the State of Play this week was stuff we already knew about. There was no new game as far as I can tell. Sorry, Moss Book 2 was new. That was new. But again, we don't know enough about Sony's approach to what their next PSVR is going to be like. We don't even know if Moss will run on it. Maybe it's just for the current PSVR. We don't know. So that's a little disappointing. Genshin Impact 2.0, I didn't mention, it's actually out like in 2 weeks, July 21st. So it's pretty soon. So that will be good, for me at least. If anybody else will be interested in doing that. Some new releases. Monster Hunter Stories does look a lot of fun, but it's going to be such a long time before I actually get around to playing it. I just have too much shit going on at the moment. And then Ubisoft just being general shitheads, so I don't think we're really surprised at this point. I'm just really hoping the comeuppance, comes at some point. Anyway, just playing a bit of Plague Tale there, just to remind you that I am going to be doing an LP of it at some point in the future, or not at some point. The first video will be out this week. This is also an old trailer, by the way, which is why it's saying pre-order now. It's like, this is a trailer for the original game. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.